The UN has warned that severe fuel shortages may force it to stop delivering food supplies to civilians in Gaza. Israel has refused to allow gasoline into the territory, saying it would fall into the hands of Hamas. The UN is also calling for significantly more aid deliveries. A first convoy of 200 trucks crossed from Egypt into the territory last weekend, but UNICEF says at least that many trucks is needed every day. Around 450 per day were being allowed in prior to Hamas's attack on Israel earlier this month. Well, we can now speak to Tommaso Della Longa from the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. Thanks a lot for being with us on DW Business. I think it'd be good to just start off by understanding how the Red Crescent funds its relief efforts in Gaza, where that money comes from and what it's relying on as sources for that.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me today. Well, there are different streams of funding. So, of course, as International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent, usually we are typically in every emergency response, we are supporting our national society. In this case, the Magen David Adom in Israel and the Palestine Red Crescent in Palestine. So there are funding that mainly we are calling through the emergency appeals. So we called for a regional appeal on neighboring countries, which is we appeal for 30 million Swiss franc, and then we have a second tool that we are using in this kind of emergencies, which is the Disaster Relief Emergency Fund, which is mainly a very quick way to transfer funds to our national society. And in this case, we transfer 1 million Swiss franc each national society to respond to the first needs right after the beginning of the conflict.
And in terms of Gaza, is there enough of that money coming in?
Well, of course, I mean, as we all know, the situation in Gaza, it's catastrophic for different reasons. I don't think that it's just a matter of money. The Gaza Strip is sealed. Only some trucks are entering in Gaza. So, of course, needs are enormous and it's not enough of what is happening at the moment. What we do hope is that we will be able to bring humanitarian aid inside the Gaza Strip as soon as possible. And together with this, we will also be able to fundraise more and give more funds to Palestine Red Crescent in this case.
Obviously, you need the funds, but you also need to be able to get hold of the resources that you buy with those funds. How easy is that at the moment in the situation that's taking place around there?
It's very complicated. It's clear that, typically we also work through the local markets, so buy in the local markets also to help local communities after a disaster, let's say, an emergency. Of course, in this situation, it's not possible because Gaza Strip is running out of literally everything. So, of course, we are working a lot on the Egyptian side because the Rafah border at the southern part of the Gaza Strip is the only door open at the moment. But then again, if we are not able to enter, if we're not able to get a safe access, everything is becoming more complicated.
And once you've gathered those resources, obviously you then need to distribute them and get them to the right people. How do you make sure that you do get them to the right people and they don't fall into the wrong hands, for example, like those of Hamas? You know, Israel has said it doesn't want petrol getting into Gaza if it's going to go to Hamas, for example. I mean, how do you go about making sure you do get it to the people in need?
Well, as International Federation of Red Cross and Crescent, we have, of course, our principal code of conduct and all the policies in place. And, of course, also all our national society are bounded by these rules. And first and foremost, I would say neutrality, but also independence. So mainly what we are sure about is that once humanitarian aid is in the hands of the Palestine Red Crescent, they will distribute aid based on their own independent assessment to the people more in need. So this is what we are doing in every kind of emergency response, as well as in Gaza. And then, of course, there are systems in place to make sure and to control that this is happening.
What about the money that's actually needed within Gaza? I mean, the UN said that Gaza was already short on billions of dollars before the latest war broke out. How much money is needed there now to just keep the basic services going?
I think that speaking about a figure at the moment, it's almost impossible. It would be much more speculation rather than a proper figure, because we are in a situation where even the assessment of the needs in the field, it's still very complicated. I mean, we know that food and water are running short. We know that fuel is not anymore there for electricity. We know from our people in the hospitals, in our 2 hospitals, that medicines and medicinal supplies are not anymore there. But then speaking about a figure at the moment, it's really complicated. What I can say is that needs are growing day by day. So the more this conflict will go ahead, the more this figure will grow.
I think that's the problem, isn't it? That it's getting deeper and deeper. And as infrastructure gets destroyed and hospitals run out of important equipment, how can you even begin to start to repair and replace things like that?
Well, I think that in this phase, it's really much more to make sure that we have a life-saving line of supplies, medicines, food and water, fuel, as I said, that are really getting the basic to the people in Gaza. Then we will think about reconstruction. Of course, I mean, what I can tell you, in the hospitals at the moment, we are talking about empty shelves. We are hearing stories of surgeries made without painkillers. So we are really, at the moment, we are really at a stage where the basics are lacking. So it's difficult to speak about reconstruction. We do hope that when we'll have a pause on the fighting, we will be able to talk about that.
And you're right to say that it's more important to focus on what's going on right now than the eventual reconstruction. So let's talk about, for example, medical supplies and such. Is there enough out there and in the region to be able to support people in Gaza?
Out there, yes. The needs are so enormous that we will always be in need of something, sincerely speaking. Now, reality is that at the Rafah border, again, on the Egyptian side, there are queues of thousands of trucks ready to go in. And this is why we are calling on all the parties to make sure that this access is not only like 10 trucks per day or 8 trucks per day, but it's really much more continuous and sustainable. And again, to have a safe humanitarian space where to deliver this humanitarian aid. We saw a great wave of solidarity, I have to admit, on both sides, different partners and donors ready to help and ready to react. But then again, in the case of Gaza Strip, if we don't have access, it's really complicated to bring this humanitarian aid. So access is really the key at the moment.
Well, indeed, and one of the key fears for the conflict is that it does spread beyond, the immediate territory that it's currently in and into neighbouring countries. If that were to happen, would that make getting the necessary aid to Gaza almost impossible?
As a humanitarian, I want to stay all the time optimistic. So I'm sure that even in the worst case scenario, we will not spare any effort to bring humanitarian aid inside Gaza Strip. I think that the problem here is really to be, of course, prepared to the worst. And this is what we are doing also with our regional appeal to make sure that also neighboring countries and our national societies in neighboring countries are ready to react and to respond in case of any emergencies. But the hope is also that together with being prepared, it's spare no effort to avoid the situation will go worse.
Okay, Tommaso Della Longa from the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. Thank you so much for joining us on DW Business.
Thank you.